Double flats and double sharps. So what are they? How do you use them? And why would you use them? So you have your double flat here. This is how it's drawn. It's just two flat symbols next to each other, normally very close. And then you have your double sharp, which is an X. It's a little different, but that's what the double sharp symbol is. So I normally do sharps, but it's good to think about both. So let's start with the flats. So if we have C double flat, then we're going to go down 2 half steps. So C, you can go down to B because C, there's no C flat or F flat. Then we're going to go from B to B flat, which can also be looked at as A sharp. Then we're going to look at E double flat. So you go E, and then E does have a flat, so E flat, and then D. So that's E double flat is another way of saying D, and C double flat is another way of saying B flat or A sharp. So this is where things start to get kind of funny, and you start to have to kind of think about it a little more. I'm going to leave that there just so someone wants to pause it and read it, but that's a little more advanced. I've not talked about any of that stuff yet, really. So, not this video. Okay, so I drew out the chromatic scale here, or the musical alphabet, and now I have A sharp major scale. So let's look at this, and let's basically use the major scale pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half to create the scale of A sharp major. We go B to C, okay? No problem, then we just go C to D. Then we just go up a half to D sharp. And then wait a second. Something's wrong. My scale is A sharp, C, D, D sharp? Okay, this is why we use double flats and double sharps. So I just drew out the rest of it. So we're still going to keep it there just to look at it. It's good just to kind of look at it. So as you see, we still started on the A and we ended on the A. But that's not what we want. What I meant by earlier that the scales are diatonic, and that's why we do this, and it goes through the alphabet, is if we're starting on A, we want this to progress from A to G, and we don't want we want A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So I'm drawing that above it, and how do we basically turn each one of these into the same meaning as this? And this is where our double flats and our double sharps are going to come in. So like I said, I like sharps, so I'm just going to be using sharps for this example. So as you know, B doesn't have a sharp, so if I call this B sharp, that's the same thing as calling it C. But now I want to turn C into D. So how do I do that? Okay, that's 2 steps away. So 2 steps is a double sharp. And what's the same way of writing D sharp? Well, D sharp. Just like the B, E doesn't have a sharp, so how do we call E F? Well, we just call it E sharp. And here we are again, we need to call F, G, so we got to go up our 2 steps, we're going to do a double sharp. Same thing again, now we just need to call G, A, 2 half steps, so G double sharp. And of course, that's not how you'd play it, but that's just, if you're actually going to write out the scale diatonically, that's how you're going to do it instead of having this. Furthermore, if you get the A sharp major scale and you write it in sheet music known as standard notation, you get this progression when you use double sharps, and you get this progression when you don't use double sharps. So let's talk about it out loud, and I'm not going to mention the sharps, I'm just going to mention which notes we're using, and you're going to see. So we start on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A. It's pretty nice. It's a nice transition. We go to this bottom one where we don't use our double sharps, and we're just going to talk about the notes. We go A, C, D, D again. Then we go F, G, A again. That's kind of weird, especially if someone tells you to play a scale, and all of a sudden now you're looking at that. It probably looks nicer to be able to translate this, and all that a double sharp is telling you is 2 steps up. So you just kind of got to think quick here, okay? So you think, okay, so I see a C double sharp, and C definitely has a sharp, so C sharp, and then it goes to D, so it's D. It's the same thing as calling it D. And when we're talking about something being diatonic, you're not going to be using this. You're going to be using your double sharps to explain it in a progression that uses all 7 of those notes that we have with the sharps, double sharps added. Here's a bonus. Half sharps and half flats. Half sharps are drawn like this, just a line going straight down, 2 lines going diagonal, and then you have your half flats, which is basically the flat symbol flipped the opposite way, like it's mirrored. So what note is in the middle of F and F sharp? That's where your half flat comes in. And how you get there is you can tune, let's say, your guitar up or down a quarter note to achieve this. And something interesting is, like, people have done a 12-string guitar instead of a 6-string guitar, and then all the 6 of the strings are tuned, let's say, how it regularly would be, and then 6 of the strings that would actually be in the middle of those strings would be tuned up or down a quarter step. So instead of having only 12 notes that your instrument can play, now you have 24 notes your instrument can play. And just like you have double sharps and double flats and things kind of start to get weird, you can also have a flat and a half, and you can also have a sharp and a half. So you can create a 24 note scale, and some musicians have done this. A composer named Ivan, I'm not going to try his last name, has the OP22, and it uses this 24 note scale.